Yes.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
Hannah's got a really good voice. She can't actually sing.
I think I can sing when I've had a bit to drink.
Well, I think I can sing when I've had a bit of drink tonight. I definitely can't.
Hello, everyone. My name is Max from Beanstalk Global. We'll just this is what happens when you have two people from the fantastic and highly thought of Nuffield Farming Scholarship reminisce together in a kitchen in Chester. Is that where you are?
Yeah.
About their Nuffield travels overseas. You get them singing, and you have this mercurial magic that comes from both of them. We're still waiting for the social media to kick in as normal. Hannah, just say again, what was your favourite song when you were travelling with Isaac with Nuffield?
It was Sierra Farrell, Years. I would highly recommend listening to it. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, very good song.
Definitely vouch for that.
This is like a sponsored broadcast. Right, we're fully live. Hello, everyone on LinkedIn, the mercurial. Let's use that. That's as the word of the day. Mercurial world of LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. We are live with the fantastic Hannah Batty and the equally fantastic Isaac Van Heerden from the AHDB. Should we introduce you properly? Here we go. Welcome to the AHDB Talking Leaders series. I am, again, Max McGillivray from Beanstalk Global. We're delighted to be joined by Hannah Batty, farm animal vet and clinical director and a Nuffield farming scholar, alongside her Nuffield colleague and well-known AHDB personality, Isaac Van Heerden. Hannah's journey into agriculture is particularly compelling. She doesn't come from a farming background, yet she has built a significant leadership role within the livestock sector through expertise, curiosity, and sheer commitment to the industry. As a Nuffield scholar, she's also explored global perspectives on livestock health and farming systems, bringing international insight back into the UK agriculture at a time when leadership, welfare, and resilience have never been more important. In our conversation today, we're going to explore her pathway into the sector, what modern leadership in farm animal practice really looks like, and the opportunities ahead for those considering a career in agriculture, whether they come from a farming background or, like Hannah, not. This is all about leadership, livestock, and the evolving future of our sector, and if we're very lucky, Isaac's legs. But that's a story for another time. Just before we hand it all over to Hannah and get a bit more of a background from herself direct. Isaac, HDB, Talking Leaders. Could you do your normal fantastic entree into Talking Leaders, please?
Excellent. Thank you, Max, and welcome everyone. Yes, I'm Isaac. I work for AHDB, the UK's levy board. So we used to work for farmers. We do things like market intelligence, research, marketing. We do a lot of on-farm events and some knowledge exchange. And the bit that I do in that is around some people and people management leadership, which is both Hannah and I's Nuffield topics overlap like that, and hence we've got some road trip stories. But yeah, so it's an agri leader, and check it out on the website, see what we get up to on that, and similarly for AHDB. So yes, we are here in Chester. And
yeah, in my kitchen. Yeah,
in your lovely kitchen. So Isaac, here's a question for you. I did a psychometric test recently for various reasons, and it came out. I know it came out with a word for me to describe me in one word, and that was catalyst. And I asked my buddy Ian in the office as to the one word that would describe me. He didn't say catalyst. He said punchable. How would you describe Hannah in one word, Isaac? You know her so well. You've known her for 6 years. In one word, how would you describe Hannah?
Energy, I think, is the polite one.
Okay, and Hannah, back to Isaac. Yeah. How do you describe Isaac in one word?
I think you're pretty inspiring, mate.
Yeah. No, seriously. That's a great one.
I really do think that, like, on our travels, the stories you told me, and also like it's funny you said energy. I feel like sometimes I'm on this hamster wheel and running a little bit fast. And the one thing Isaac made me do at various points was to just stop and think. And he wasn't afraid to hit me with these really hard questions. So, I mean, there were lots of fun nights. There were a few tears on the journey and everything. But yeah, I think inspiring is probably what I'd say.
Fantastic. Yeah. And everyone, just a technical point. Just a technical point. We don't have the best of internet here, but the voice is holding out. So those are the podcasts. You'll find everyone else watching live. Just watch the sync, but listen to the words. So Hannah, I've got to ask you. you're a vet, you're in farming, you're an international globetrotter within the farming sector. How did you fall into agriculture? You could have done anything. Could have gone into politics. You could have gone into sports. Why agriculture? How come you got into agriculture?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I always said I became a vet because I don't really like people. And I still kind of stand by that in an odd way. So people are really challenging, we're tricky. And actually, the one thing you get with animals, that as long as you give them the environment they need, and cows in particular, you know, the management, the nutrition, the support, they will generally do what we ask them to do. In terms of that, like when I was about 4 years old, my dad said, well, wouldn't it be wonderful if you were a vet and you could look after these animals? And my dad is my hero. And so from about 4 years old, that's all I was ever going to do, really. I was pretty lucky that when I went to secondary school, I had an amazing support network. So when I marched up to the science teacher at 10 years of age and said, I need to get 3 A's at A level, he said, well, we've got a few years to get through yet, but we will get you there. And that was it. So I was, just incredibly fortunate to have the right people around me at the right time. And through a bit of luck, a bit of determination, because I didn't get into vet school first time. I spent 12 months on the tills in Tesco, which I think is the best training any vet could ever have, because you speak to everybody and anybody. Absolutely loved that. Ended up at vet school. And then why agriculture? Well, small animals are interesting, but when I think of the powerhouse of a modern dairy cow and like what they can achieve, and the fact you're not just working with an animal, but you're working with a whole herd, and then you're also working with a business, it just meant you could do so many different things. Yeah.
Any regrets?
Any regrets in terms of becoming a vet?
Yeah, more so coming into agriculture. I'm trying to slightly manipulate you, because you're endorsing farming. And when we have people, we have a lot of graduates that listen to this, and people outside of the sector. But going back to my original point, you could have done something. You could have done something with an office job. But I'm guessing that's that. You
know what? I in terms of career, zero regrets. And do you know why? I do not know any other industry. And you know, I might be being blinkered, but even now, if I get called to an emergency to carve a cow, that superhero feeling,
I love it.
Bottle that and sell it, I would be a billionaire. Because even on the worst days, you know, when, you know, I might have had a bit of a nightmare, something's gone wrong, it's almost like this drug that keeps you coming back for more. Or even when like you have this new idea that you plant with somebody, you know, and I'm so fortunate I get to go on farms as an advisor, and you plant this little seed, and then 6 months later you see it develop. You know, I think of one of the farms I work with where the advances they've made in calf health is just, that feeling is addictive. And so for me, I think I'm probably a dopamine addict. Like it means that I just get to get a hit every single day, no matter what I'm doing. So zero regrets, actually. Zero. Yeah.
And it must be,
I'd do it again.
Yeah, I was a final question, and it must be really exciting being specifically in the dairy sector because of the advances that are happening. Because you will have seen, help me, Isaac, automatic milking. What's up?
Automatic milking.
Yeah, our colleague Mark has got ACRs behind him in his office for some strange automatic cluster releases, and all of the. So again, it must be a very exciting period to be in the dairy sector.
Yeah, massively. And when you look at the advancements, you know, I've only been vetting for 12 and a half years, but the changes in technology, in even just our understanding of what happens at a physiological level in animals, like it is insane. And it means that, you know, I've got one of these personalities where I quite like learning something new. I get, you know, I'm a magpie, I get distracted by the bright and shiny. There's always something new to learn, or there's always some way of improving, or be that efficiency or profitability, that it's just an absolute joy to do what I do.
Yeah. So you're a dairy vet, bit of a young stock specialist, and yet we're not here to talk about cows and young stock today. But, you know, as a vet, you train, it's the sciences, the diagnostics, that real pure science in a way, and yet we're talking about people today. So at what point did you realize the cows are actually all right, you know, since the people and the people management and the leadership, what was that penny drop moment?
Yeah, so I've I've been vetting, just over 12 years. And I think I've been really fortunate that I've got to go overseas. So I've been to the States, been to New Zealand, and time again, you see very similar problems. And, we've just talked about all the advancements in technology and knowledge, and yet we still sometimes see the same problems time and time again. Colostrum management, let's use that as an example. We know what we need to do. We know how to do it, and yet we still get failure of passive transfer. And so to me, it's not necessarily the cow or the systems that are, and I use the word broken, but I don't mean that. What I mean is that we've got these people within our industry that maybe need to either have the tools, the support, the development, the training to be able to achieve the success on farms that we know that certain businesses can achieve. In addition to that, I've been going on farms left, right, and centre, and the constant message you hear is that labour is an issue. We can't get staff. Well, to me, is that it's a problem with every single other person on the planet, or is it that maybe we have a problem with how we manage and support people on our farms? So I think any vet who is worth their weight has to realise that whenever we're looking after animals, animal welfare and human welfare are intrinsically linked. So you can't have one without the other.
Excellent. You're talking about some labour shortages or staff crisis. Do you think we don't have enough people, there isn't enough people, or do you think it is a management issue? And some people find it a lot easier to get people. What do you think is the angle there? What do people need to learn around people management?
I think it's a combination of the two. I think firstly, we historically have potentially had family businesses where you've employed, fathers, daughters, sons, mothers, uncles, cousins, whatever. And actually, the way the industry is going now, we have to employ people outside the family unit, which means we have to understand how to look after employees, how to keep them within our businesses, because quite frankly, we're fighting with a million other industries to keep people within it. Not only that, once we've got people within the business, we need to keep them there, or we need to start making it more appealing to those who don't come from an agricultural background. So I look at people like, say Sophie, Farmer in Training on Instagram. One of the biggest things she talks about is the fact that if we can get better education around what opportunities there are in agriculture, suddenly our pool of 10 becomes a pool of 100. And just because you're not from this background doesn't mean it's not right for you. Once we do get the people in the door, making sure that we induct them right, that we support them correctly, and that people feel like they have a sense of purpose and a real position within the business is so critical. So yes, it's the two, I think. I think we need to widen the pool and make it accessible, showcase why it's so great. We talk about what's good for mental well-being, being outside, being able to create, make a difference really quickly. Again, dairy in particular is so great for that. And once people are in there, keep them.
And to just interject, if you look at the stats that are coming out now, that 1 in 6 under 22-year-olds can't find a job, and they're trying to find this atypical job in, let's just pick on marketing, when actually, Hannah, they could be you, and going into the dairy sector. There's so many opportunities. But is that a direct criticism of agriculture per se, that again we're just not very good at promoting ourselves, that those individuals? You made the change. Why can't those individuals make the change? Let's throw it to Isaac. Isaac, do we need to do more with the likes of the AHDB and all the other trade groups? And I know you do, but is there more that we need to do, or is the market coming towards us?
I think there's some scary stats out there. Actually, McDonald's did the research. 67% of young people don't feel they'll get any job satisfaction in agriculture. 70% of them don't think they have the skills to do it. So it's what we portray as an industry, and of course, yes, the likes of ourselves, the NFUs, and do a lot, and can do a lot more. But I do think it's the people in the industries, and I can't tell that story as well as a farmer can.
You're so right about that. Like, you cannot be what you cannot see.
Yeah.
That to me sums up. The only reason I'm a dairy vet actually is because I saw a 5'2", forgive me if I got that wrong, but a 5'2" female vet called Kath roll a cow with a twisted uterus, carve a set of twins, and I looked at her and I went, I want to be you.
Wow.
That's like that helped so much. So I think your point there about actually promoting these different types of people within the industry, just because nobody's born with a set of skills, are they?
No, exactly. And it is telling that story. And, the likes you've mentioned, Sophie, earlier, that's such a great example. And these days with social media, it is a lot easier than it used to be, isn't it?
Yeah, so much easier.
Yeah, so I suppose let's be positive and optimistic. If we all are collectively holding hands on this and we can get that message out, we can create more Hannahs.
That might be terrifying. Isaac's not going to go.
Unless Isaac's and Max's. Oh, God.
Yeah, so you did scare me there for a moment. But no, we need more Hannahs. Right. We touched a bit on Nuffield. What were some of the great things that you saw out in the rest of the world, but also maybe some locally? What are some of the great people management practices that you saw?
Yeah, I was quite ignorant, I think, to global agriculture before we went, and I thought that Britain was the best at everything. And I don't think I'm afraid to say that I was proven very, very wrong. When I went overseas, really the biggest message that came from some great businesses was that you need to have a sense of purpose. Why are we doing what we're doing? And when we were in Brazil, when we went and met Roberta Bertin Barris at Fazenda Florestra, that was it. So this woman had these absolutely stunning gear cattle, and she was just adamant she wanted to kind of showcase what they could achieve. These animals adapted for the Brazilian climate. They had all these special features, be it these big droopy ears and the humps on their back, and milking potential. And when you went to her farm, every single person within that business knew that it was to showcase top animal welfare, what they could do. And I think back to the pride those guys had when they were showing us the show cattle, walking us around, making sure that we took the time to look. Having that real clear sense of purpose was something that I think all the best businesses that we visited did. I think there was quite a lot of openness and curiosity that I think we sometimes shy away from as businesses over here, in terms of, complete unknown people entering those businesses, and they were asking us as many questions as we were asking them, I feel. So I think that not being afraid to kind of challenge the status quo was one thing that was really impressive and amazing to see. And then really understanding who was in the team. I know when I was in Australia, I visited some really big businesses, so the likes of Aurora Dairies. So they were employing over 500 team members. They looked after 47,000 dairy cows, 22,000 heifers. And a business of that size, anybody in a management position had to understand themselves as much as they understood other people. So yeah, lots of lessons, I think. And if anything, I came away with as many questions as I did answers, to be honest.
And I think there are, you're right about the purpose, and that is really crucial. But it's also how you, one of my sort of key takeaways from the Nuffield travels, it's important how you make people feel. I work with a dairy farmer up in Yorkshire. And he'll have a summer barbecue for all of the staff, or take them to the pub on a Friday afternoon, and every couple of months, or things like that. So I think there's some good examples here, but we need to get better at, understanding people and working with people.
Yeah, and it's the simple things. Like I was sat at a meeting the other night and chatting to a farmer who says, I don't have any issues with recruiting, and he says, you've just got to remember when somebody's birthday is, make sure that they've got a good work-life balance, and check in occasionally.
Yeah.
So Hannah, leadership. How do you learn leadership? How have you learned leadership?
With a lot of mistakes, if I'm being completely honest. Similarly to like anybody leading a farming business, like a lot of the time as a vet, you get zero training when you're at vet school as to how to become a leader. And so I would come back to that message of role models. I've been really fortunate in my career that I've worked in a lot of teams where there've been really strong leaders who've shown me how I want to behave, and be that kind of highlighting to me areas that are a weakness of mine. I think of one of the guys I work with at the minute who has so much patience, and he was really considered and takes time, and is sometimes on a frustrating day I think he's just too risk averse, but actually he is a phenomenal leader in his own way because of how he makes sure that he gathers as much information as possible before making a decision. I've had the pleasure of working with somebody who was the complete opposite though, and was literally fast moving, fast paced, and so Yeah, I think learning from other people. I do think anytime you can do training, it's been useful. So a little bit of development training I've had. I remember I came to the Agri Leaders Forum when that was going on, and that was absolutely fantastic. And just asking questions, I think. So a lot of trial and error, in all honesty.
Okay.
What about mentorships? And that's something that I personally have benefited. Usually, I've got an amazing mentor in Diana, and I think it's okay to give a shout out to a fellow Nuffields and Helen Wyman's Toucan. But who have you had as a mentor that's really helped?
Yeah, one of the very first vets I worked with when I first graduated, he was very inspirational to me. You know, we were probably quite similar personalities in that he was, you know, this person who always asked why, sometimes ran a bit too fast, didn't always gather as much information as he needed, but had this real sense of drive and purpose that I really enjoyed. And he always said to me, he said, I've not got everything right, but I think if you do things with the best of intentions, wanting to look after as many people as you can, generally things will work out all right. So I do think mentors are important. And I think actually as you go through life, that can change. Like I feel like, you know, maybe I'm about to enter a stage of my life where I might need a new mentor or somebody else to bounce ideas off. You know, it doesn't have to be that you stick with the one person forever.
No, so, I think that's important, and that a relationship does evolve, and you might need somebody else. You mentioned something there about that I don't always have it right. Do you think that's maybe an issue we have in agriculture, British agriculture, that people, you know, if you're leading the business, you feel you have to get everything right, and you know, so it's seen as weak to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we try and always get it right. Do you think that's maybe something that how do we overcome that?
Yeah, I think that's a really key point actually. And sometimes being vulnerable is the best thing you can do. I always think back to one of the key things I took from your Nuffield was to be a great leader, you've got to be authentic. Mm-hmm. And I don't know a single human in existence that has got every single thing right. And I think when you can share that, you almost make it okay for the rest of the team to feel like they can put their hand up and say, you know, actually that I need a bit of help, or I'm not going to hide this mistake. I'm going to come to you so we can work out how to fix it together. So I think, you know, admitting failure is sometimes the best thing you can ever do. And also you only learn when you manage to, you know, cock things up occasionally.
We were talking in the office this morning about values. And we were looking at some of the companies in our sectors that's on their values page, and there's a standard joke that's whoever is the marketing guru or the web person is that you've got to put your values up there, and everyone looks at the values and it's talked of at the AGM, but then everyone forgets it because it is, Hannah, Isaac, about being human and authentic, isn't it? If you've got a really good team and I don't today I'm not really liking the word leader, but a really good let's go for boss. And they're really human and authentic, and you would figuratively follow them into battle. You don't need the value. Who looks at values on a website? You know what it is. It's just doing good, and especially Hannah with yourself, doing good by your animals because you care about them.
Yeah. I have a saying whenever I do anything, it's whatever makes you sleep at night. And I know that sounds a bit mad, but whatever makes you sleep at night. So be it that I am stitching a uterus or whatever, and I'm like, do I put an extra stitch in it? Whatever makes you sleep at night. Be it, you know, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, I think
half the audience have just fainted. Carry on.
If I feel like I got it wrong and I might need to follow it up with a message or whatever, it's whatever makes you sleep at night.
That's definitely a first on the Talking Leaders.
but actually, Isaac, the vets I know, not trying to pigeonhole Hannah, they're all very similar to Hannah. They all care. They really do care. And is that because it is life and blood that they're dealing with, rather than I'm going to pick on accountants again, accountants who are just on a spreadsheet? Is that so somehow we've got to distill the magic that is Hannah and put that elsewhere within the sector? How do we do that, Isaac?
Well, I think it's an infectious energy, but I think it's the same is true for farmers. They do care, so they truly care. I think it is maybe just a perception. You know, I touched on vulnerability and authenticities in a moment ago, and I think somehow it's seen as we have to portray this thing. But if we can just show, if we can show the public how much farmers care for their animals, and the people like vets and nutrition, everybody care for the animals, I think it's such a strong and powerful story that we can tell, and will help with the consumer image, but also bringing people into the industry.
Yeah, and I think the public want
the
public want that. I can't remember what study I read, but farmers are some of the most trusted people to the general public, and I think being open and honest just again increases that level of trust. So why not make the most of something that is already there, like build on that? Because I think back to Claire, one of the guys who did a Nuffield in the same year group as us. She's like, our role isn't always just to educate, it's to engage. Actually open those doors, talk about the good, talk about the bad, explain. I'm the kind of person, if you tell me something and shout at me, but you don't explain why, you've lost my attention. Kind of put the purpose back into what we do.
Yeah, and I'm just dragging out the standard old stat that NFU survey from a few years ago indicated that 6 out of 10 kids don't know where fresh produce comes from, and you could ditto that with bacon and milk. And we're a very urbanized society. And you'd want, Hannah, it'd be fantastic to get you into every school in the land, but that's not, especially with a cow. But that's not possible. But with the weight of us. And I do think the market is coming towards us. There's a big event going on at local agricultural college to us, Writtle, and when we were there previously, there must have been 60 16-year-olds, and we asked them why you're all here, and half of them said, "Here it comes," because of Jeremy Clarkson, which is great to have that. So again, it just being optimistic. I do feel that there's this weight of motion, but we do need more Hannahs, and the fantastic work of Isaac and the AHDB, just waving that banner to attract more people into the sector, and also this whole change that potentially we were going to see in the likes of, here it comes again, AI, that there'll be some jobs that just won't exist. But Hannah, you can't be replaced by AI ever, but you can use it to the best of your ability. So do think that there's bright lights ahead, but we need to work at it.
Yeah.
You talked earlier about and you just said about attracting people and also keeping them. I think the stats are that of every 10 people that come into the industry, from wherever, that's from school or changing career or immigration, within 3 years we've lost 7 out of the 10. That is just terrible. So there's two things here, and you alluded to it at the start. There's the attracting them, but also keeping them, and which is what we're kind of here to talk about, and leadership and management. How do you build high-performing teams without burning them out, and how do you make sure people do stay in the industry?
Yeah, I think we need to stop expecting for people to just understand things as soon as they enter a business. Like, one thing that was done incredibly well with me when I started as a vet was my induction. Being a vet is a bit like a driving test. You only learn to become a vet once you've passed. And actually, I got my piece of paper, but it was probably the first 12 years of learning, which is kind of what gets you to where you want to be. And I think with anybody who's entering a farming business, we need to take that same approach again. I think having relatively low expectations of skill, but I would always expect a high standard of attitude. And if you have that, you can build somebody and you can mold them, and actually that's the perfect person to have. The thing that can kill attitude, though, is if people just aren't supported right. So I'd say to any business owner, review what your induction process is. If an alien walked onto your farm tomorrow, would you be able to get them to where you want it to be with the induction, or would you point and say that's the parlour, crack on?
And just to give the AgriLeader resource a quick plug, so we have got some amazing resources called the Labour Lifecycle. So go on to Google AgriLeaders and Labour Lifecycle on how to recruit people, how to induct people, how to do reviews. So, help is out there.
And you've just touched on that there, Isaac, that actually we induct somebody, but then just because somebody knows what to do and has been doing it for years doesn't mean there isn't a benefit to a review process. Because, sometimes people think reviews only have to happen when something's gone wrong. But to me, some of the most motivating things in my own personal development, and actually the only reason I ended up doing a Nuffield, is because I sat down and had a review with a couple of my peers. And they said, well, where are you at? What's giving you satisfaction? What isn't? And what do we need to do? And actually the thing that happened was a Nuffield off the back of it.
Wow.
So yeah, so I do really think that remembering the importance of reviews as an opportunity to sense check. And actually, if everything's great, that's fantastic. But sometimes somebody just needs that talking space to be able to highlight the things that might either be not so good or even potentially be the thing that's pushing them away from your business.
Guys, can I just jump in? If you're on Zoom and you got questions for Hannah and Isaac, or even commentary, throw them in. Jim on LinkedIn: share farming would help a lot of people join agriculture. Too many people are trapped in a rat race. Let more farms build housing with agricultural ties on them. Then people wanting to opt out of mainstream work and into ag could transfer and learn new skills in exchange for housing and a subsidized lifestyle. That's how the older states operated and thrived. Well, that's brilliant, Jim. Realistically, is that going to happen? It feels like that's something that's going to happen more in Northern Europe, but it's oh, help me, guys. It would be great to wave a magic wand and to be able to create that situation. Hannah?
Yeah, to me, I think it is, we are in a position where there's a lot of kind of history and tradition, I think, associated with British agriculture, that you are seeing new examples of people trying to kind of challenge the status quo on that. You know, I look at somebody like Ollie Chedji, actually, who is, the roaming dairy, absolutely awesome, the way he's come into this industry. And again, because he's been able to form a relationship with somebody who has been curious and open-minded enough to work with him, I think that curiosity I talked about at the very start will bring more opportunities like that in. And I think, as much as periods of hardship can be tough for everybody, sometimes it forces us to change and do something different. And it might be we're about to enter a period like that.
Definitely. And so you mentioned Ollie there, and Tim Mason, who he's gone into business. I think they've now expanded. It's called Pitch Up. So, so having Tim May, Kingsley Estates, and they've got this thing where they've got almost like different people working on the estate and coming in with business ideas and and working on the farm. So it's such an innovative way of attracting different people, giving them opportunities, and then rolling that out now wider with this thing called Pitch Up. That's such a, we need people like that comes up with these ideas and different ways of doing it. That's how we evolve as a species.
Yeah. Neil from Somerset: Hannah, would you run your own farm?
Would I run my own farm? Oh, that's a really interesting question. There are bits of me that I've always thought I wanted to, and there are bits of me that one of the best parts of my job is that I get to go to so many different places, and to be honest with you, pick the best ideas and then pass them off as my own at the next place. But I don't know whether I would have the attention span or I think I would need an incredibly good team around me to make it work. I think I've got strengths that work really well with kind of being a vet and an advisor. And if I was to run my own farm, I would need people who could support my weaknesses, like kind of the fact that sometimes I get bored by the routine. Well, actually, I think in order to run a farm, there are elements that always have to be routine. So I definitely need the right people around me to do that. So I would never say no, because I never say no to anything. But I think at the moment for me, it would be a big shift.
There's an interesting point you said about the right people around you. We quite often, and we've seen this with working with farms, we quite often recruit people like us because we've got a natural affinity to it. I think we've got some various personality profiles in your Nuffield speech at the conference all about some different kinds of people. Do you think we should maybe, when we look at our roles and say, if it's a milker, we don't want a yellow peacock, you called yourself earlier, that's in personality. We need somebody that can do it. And I think maybe we should look at the kind of people that we recruit and the kind of role profiles or adverts we write to attract the right people with that.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, that we are probably missing a trick. So I'm sure everybody knows, but in my Nuffield, we talked about, broadly speaking, 4 different personalities. So you have your eagles, who are really driven, motivated, want to hit a KPI. There are certain tendencies in the man sat next to me of the eagle, as discovered on a trip along a Brazilian road when I'd never driven on the wrong side of the road before. But so those kind of really driven, motivated things. So you've got people like me who are, You know, look at the way I'm gesticulating. I'm a peacock. I get excited by things that are shiny and new, but I sometimes lack attention to detail. Or you think about our owls who love data. You know, the chap I said was a bit of a role model earlier on in my career. You know, he is very owl data driven, kind of wants to gather all the information. Or then you think about the dove personalities who are often calf rearers. Actually, you think of a dove, the bird of peace, harmony, very caring. Well, actually, should we be kind of self-selecting for somebody who is maybe that kind of dove personality, slightly more caring, empathetic, patient for our calf rearing? Should we be having somebody who loves routine and thrives on it in our milkings?
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say that we can't have other people within the team with different traits, and it's not to say anybody is just one personality and nothing else. But I think you're right. Maybe we shouldn't just be selecting for the people who are most like ourselves.
100%. And the beauty of that is we've got a natural tendency, but we can learn to flex.
Yeah.
You know, so I've had to bring out the owl or the dove in me from time to time. So yes, and that is the beauty of this, but also all leadership traits. We can learn to flex. It's not a skill that you either have or not. It is a teachable and a learnable skill.
And it's about self-awareness, isn't it? You know, actually, it's not about saying I am this, I am that. And that is what I'm always going to be. It's about understanding that actually I'm aware enough to recognize that that isn't my strength. So I need either people within my team or people advising my business that can help me in that area if I want to achieve success. Actually, give me standing on stage and talking to 500 people and wearing a flamboyant outfit. That's probably a much more comfortable position for me to be in than to be sat at a computer analyzing data for 5 hours. So it's really thinking about how I can either draw on others or, you know, if we're talking about a dairy team, who it is that we need, what are the gaps in our current team that need filling.
Yeah, well done. And can I just, I'm going to cross a slight line here, especially with the cosmopolitan nature of both of you, and stray slightly into the world of politics. With both of your international travels, we always talk about the Dutch diamond. That's in Dutch horticulture. They're very, very sophisticated because they have this symbiotic relationship between academia, industry, and the trade, academia, industry and government. So they've got this virtuous, and they all work hand in glove. You could perhaps accuse the UK of being slightly dysfunctional, not having that. When you've been on your travels, Hannah and Isaac, have you seen whether in countries where there's a similar system to the Dutch diamond, where you have academia, government and trade all working as one to the greater good? Have you seen examples like that? Hannah, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think New Zealand and Australia, I've seen some really good examples. I think actually they're doing a great job, particularly within dairy, of trying to kind of almost have like a two-way feedback, getting all the right people in the room together. I can't think of any specifics off the top of my head, but just from a feeling perspective, I visited some of the really similar to AHDB, actually, some of the kind of Fonterra Dairy NZ advisory groups. And it wasn't just about kind of one person preaching at the other, like, this is why I'm right and why you are wrong. Well, it was very much wanting to understand from all the different stakeholder perspectives.
Collaboration. Okay.
I do think the Dutch do get it right up. Tim Bradshaw just at the NFU conference this week said about, you know, you've got one part of government and trying to do one thing, and one part of government trying to do totally the opposite thing. So similar within farming. So we need to work much better together and get that. But we went to see an interesting guy, Klaus Schoenmakers, in Brazil. Big flower farmers and actually Dutch origins, but so they had a really amazing system where it were all underpinned by, so you have to have the economics of it right. So it has to make business. It has to do right by society, kind of looking at and how they do the greater good for the society, by nature, but above all for people. So they had those four underpinning principles, and it was up all across the business, and they really lived it.
Yeah, and it's quite funny as a practice. Actually, we often talk about the three pillars we have to consider. You know, animals first and foremost, clients, and our internal team. We need to do right by all three.
Yeah.
And Hannah, sorry, Hannah, do you attend a lot of external meetings, whether it be on the dairy side or the NFU side? Because there's some people within the sector that are big advocates for it. Then other people say they're just talking shops. Nothing ever happens. Where do you sit on that?
I do a bit of both, in all honesty. I bumped into somebody at the fish and chip shop last night, actually, who said, just to reveal my dietary preferences there.
Mushy peas or
mushy peas and gravy, yeah.
Okay. Any pies? We've got to know about the pie.
I bumped into somebody at the chippy who said, God, you seem to be at all these different meetings. But at the same time, like, I think the chance to break away from the day-to-day and hear something, as long as you come away with one thing, I think it's always useful. Do I think they can become talking shops if they're not managed or delivered in the right way? Yeah, because the last thing we want is an echo chamber, which is why actually I think sometimes having people who disagree in the same room is the most powerful thing you can do. Because actually, by disagreeing, and I often use this phrase with some of the people I work with, I'm like, if I challenge you on something, if you can defend it, it's the right thing for your business, or you're doing the right thing. If you can't, maybe you need to get curious about that thing and ask a few questions, because that could be an area for improvement.
Do you think that's an issue in our industry around, and it's comfortable, we've always done it this way?
It can be. I think we're starting to change. I think particularly with technology, I think, love them or loathe them actually with a lot of the kind of aligned contracts. I think they have some good ideas behind them in terms of trying to drive efficiencies, productivity, etc. So yeah, I think we are changing, but I think the easiest thing to do, no matter what situation you're in, and I'm the same, is to think that you're the victim and you're getting told what to do. And actually it's having the kind of confidence, if you like, to think, well, actually I'm the master of my own ship. I can turn this into whatever I want.
That reminds me of a broadcast that we did with Emily Norton, chair of AHDB, who also swore on a broadcast, but in a joking manner, like yourself. But where she was very erudite was she's saying government's there for you, but it's also not there for you. You've got to stand on your own 2 feet. In November, I went to a British potato conference, and potatoes have had a hard 2025. And there was a lovely farmer, but he was saying, "What's the government going to do for us?" And I just wanted to show him this broadcast with Emily, saying, "You've got to do it for yourself. If potatoes aren't working for you, don't grow potatoes. Do something else. You've got to adapt. It's evolution, not revolution." Hannah, would you agree?
Well, yeah, you're not forced to be anything. Like ultimately, if something isn't working, what is stopping us from changing it? And I think there are some amazing, beautiful things about the history of like British agriculture and generational passing down, but equally, it is, sometimes things do have to change, and it might be that you are the person that has to change it.
Your report, the title was People, Processes and Potential. So we've talked quite a bit about some people. Let's talk about some of those processes or some of those things that people can put into place. Are SOPs, protocols, is that a leadership tool, or do you think sometimes people use that as an excuse to not use it? How do we find the middle ground on that?
Yeah, so I think with things like protocols, they're there to protect people, is how I always use them. So actually, I think sometimes having an agreed way of doing something written down means that when it doesn't go right, you're not getting personal by having a dig at somebody. I don't think a protocol is a leadership tool. I think it's very much an operational tool. So, when I was in Brazil, and we met this amazing guy called Itamar, who led a team of cowboys who looked after 1,000 head of Nelore cattle. So you see these cows with the big humps on the back, don't you? And they were just these stunning beef cows. And we'd been on the farm for 5 minutes, and it was like, right, do you want to get on a horse and go head off with these cowboys? And I am not an equine vet for a reason. So yeah, I walked like John Wayne for quite a few days after that particular afternoon. But to go out there and to see the way they were operating was amazing. And I remember we sat down with Itamar, and he told me that I'd been doing my job wrong. And I said, "What do you?" And he says, "Well, Hannah, you've been starting with the protocol, or you've been starting with the process, and you should have started with the outcome. If somebody doesn't know what the end goal is, just being handed a protocol is lazy. It doesn't get buy-in. It means people aren't intrinsically motivated." And it was a real penny drop moment.
Wow.
And, you see this in examples of things like lean management. actually, if we're talking to our teams on a farm, we should get everybody involved and knowing what the goal is. And again, it comes back to that first point. What's the why? Like, what's the why bit of the goal?
The purpose,
exactly.
Yeah.
If we know that, then every single decision I make within that business should be an alignment to get me there. And sometimes it might be a little bit wrong, or it might be that you would choose to do something in a very different way to how I do. But good leaders know that it doesn't just have to be done in one way. Actually giving people that kind of flexibility to get there, as long as it is an alignment, it is no bad thing. The way the protocol comes in handy is you can then capture that, write it down, and if things are going wrong, say, for example, we're having a load of calf pneumonia, but we've stuck to a set protocol, well, then we can critique the protocol and change it. So they're good to have in the background, but they are not a replacement.
And take the personal conflict out of it.
Yeah,
that's the. I don't think I know many businesses that actually share that vision as to where they take. There was a very successful cider business that within 5 years sold themselves out, and they operated on the golden. It's the same thing. Why? But theirs was a bit more jingoistic. It was the golden thread. That the golden thread was taking them to where they eventually went to go. So any big meeting that they had, it was always, will this take us to the golden thread? Will this take us to the end goal? What? Why? And that's a really good point, Hannah. I bet there's not many businesses on a Monday morning say why. What are we going to achieve this week? Where are we going to get? Where are we going to go? And it's an easy thing to set up, isn't it?
Oh, so easy. I was on a farm in Tasmania. They milked 1,300. I think they were autumn block calving cows. And they had I took a picture, and I do this on a few presentations, and I show this picture of this cow in these beautiful pastures. And I say to everybody, I said, what do you think is important to that business? And, instantly people are like, well, grass management and healthy cows and the people to look after them. And when you walked into their dairy parlour, on the wall, written up for everybody to see, both the team and for me as a visitor, was, why are we here? Optimise farm profitability and sustainability through productive pastures, healthy and happy cows, and a great team. So simple and so powerful to have it on the wall.
And you can even make it even simpler. Have fun, make money. Princess Anne, I always bring this out every various broadcasts. Princess Anne at Princess Royal at Oxford Farming Conference a couple of years ago, when she came up halfway through the day, she said, this is a fantastic conference. But one thing, no one's mentioning the word profit. Profit is not a dirty word, everyone. We need profit to be able to grow. We must mention profit. So spot on, Hannah.
It is something that you can and should involve the wider teams. And Terra Viva that I mentioned earlier, for their 50th anniversary, them being some 50 years in business, they involved all 1,300 employees to come up with their vision, and it was Plant a Better Life. They're a nursery company, and that's what the employees came up with. So, and that's what they try and do, is plant a better life for everybody that works there.
Hannah, do you do the same for yourself? Do you ask yourself why?
Yeah, I've probably had quite a long period of reflection since Nuffield, actually. Why do you do what you do? Yeah, I think it boils a little bit down to, and I don't know if it was on here or just before, like, part of the reason I'm a vet is I love that superhero feeling. And so for me, I think my whole sense of purpose is to make a difference. And I know that sounds a bit cheesy and a bit corny, but I always think that, like, for me, it's my motivator and it's my driver, is to feel like I've made a difference. I quite like problem solving. I quite like, it turns out I do like people. Make a difference, I think, is probably like my guiding star a little bit.
That thing of what makes you sleep at night. And people always ask, what is it that keeps you up at night? And actually the flip side of that is what give you the peace. And if we frame it in that positive way, then let's head towards that.
Yeah. And it's a bit like the chap who commented on LinkedIn about not being in the stuck in the rat race. If there's a book in everyone, it feels like you're only a third of the way through your book. Come on, allude to us, Hannah. Where do you want to go? Where's your book going? Can we hold your hand and find out where's your book going?
Yeah, so over the last 12 months since Nuffield, I've had I'm not going to call it a failure. I'm going to call it a learning exercise. So I set up a little consultancy business talking about things like leadership and communication, which I've been doing alongside my vetting, so AgriAlign. And it's been great working with some great teams, great people and companies. But the one thing it's made me realise is that I don't like doing anything on my own. I am actually quite a social creature, as much as I thought I was. So it's been fun. But I think having that ticking in the background, the bit that makes me feel the best is when like a success just isn't my own, when it's a shared one.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, there've been some great successes with the team I've been with currently. You know, we held a calf conference in November and I felt like a rock star at the end of it. You know, we had people not just from within our own team, but within industry, and we got to share a great message, and calf rearers were really engaged. And that reminded me of the fact that not only do I want to make a difference, I want to do it with people. I still have the itch to travel a little bit. And so, yeah, in the next few months, I'll be kind of packing up life here and emigrating to New Zealand.
Wow.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. So I've been really fortunate, actually. I've got an incredible team that I've worked with who I still stand by the fact that they are probably some of the best people I will ever work with. But just for my own kind of own personal development and just wanting to give myself a new challenge, I want to go to New Zealand and get stuck into calving season 2026 for that superhero feeling. But also I think there's a lot of opportunity over there in terms of some of these things we talked about, in terms of like team management, young stock, a chance to learn something new. I think I'd really like to get my head around kind of some of the bigger picture there, the other challenges, the environmental challenges they've got. So yeah, so that's it really. Keep challenging myself, pushing myself, and learning along the way.
But Isaac, we're not going to lose Hannah, are we? She's going to go to New Zealand. She's going to become even more positively intellectual in the respect of the dairy world, and she's going to come back, and through a process of osmosis, the dairy sector is going to be even better in the UK, Isaac, isn't it?
Definitely, I'm sure. And she'll be a international traveling consultant all around the world. But she's going to be surrounded by Kiwis, so we'll have to see how that. So we had a question here from Percy in Suffolk saying, as a vet, you stand in the yards and you see everything. What is your responsibility as a vet to call out bad leadership and bad management if you see it?
Yeah, it's a really difficult line to tread, that, because as a vet, you are invited onto somebody's farm. You are not, it's not your right to be there. So I think navigating that kind of client service provider relationship is something you have to have in the back of your mind. But to me, humans are humans, and my moral compass is pretty strong. And so I think working out how to challenge in the right way and in the right way, in the right manner and at the right time. It's a little bit like the blue stick on a farm. So when I think about the blue stick, if all you've ever known is that a blue stick is what you need to move a cow, how do you know that it might not be the right thing to do? Actually, it's an education piece and it's a conversation piece. So for me, it is very much my responsibility to call it out, not just because I'm a vet, but because I would want anybody to treat me the way I treat them. And I think that extends to everybody. So sometimes the best way to do it is to, you know, have a brew at the end of the day, or it's really funny how many open and honest conversations you can have when you're doing a surgery on a cow. Yeah. Because actually people are suddenly, they've let their guard down a little bit. There's something else distracting them. You know, it's a bit like that, the walk with me idea behind opening up about mental health. When you aren't having that direct one-to-one conversation, it becomes a lot easier. So yeah, I think it's very much my responsibility. I would hate for it never not to be, because, you know, it's like I said before, if somebody challenges me on something and I can defend it, it's the right thing to do. If they challenge me and I can't, or it draws questions, maybe I need to reflect and change.
And just for any vets out there listening, and actually any managers, I went to go and see an amazing lady, Dr. Jolanda Jansen in the Netherlands, and she's started as a vet, but very much into social sciences. And they've now got some amazing tools where you can learn how to approach some of those conversations. So these stimulated conversations. So yes, and if you listen to that, Jolanda Jansen sent Anna Advies, go and Google that, and I would really recommend it.
And I think questions, if you ask an open question to somebody, it's amazing how much they'll tell you. And then when you think you want to say something, just be quiet for an extra 15 seconds, because sometimes that's when the little nugget comes out.
It's quite amazing the difference in those uncomfortable silences, how that differs across cultures. It's a great tool in Britain, and just keeping quiet, so people don't like it.
Team, we're starting to run out of 50p's for the slot. And Hannah, what would be your? I'm after sound bites now. What would be your collective advice to people listening in, whether they be graduates or whether they people and curious about the sector, or whether they be that hardened dairy farmer in the north of Ireland? What would your advice be as to how you can make a success within agriculture? Go.
Yeah. So three words. The first is why. So get curious. Find your sense of purpose, ask why. The second one is who. So get to know yourself first of all. Who are you? Get to know the people around you, understand them better, and also find out who can help you achieve what you want to achieve. And the third one would be how. How are you going to get there? So find the tools, find the support, find the training that you need. So why, who, and how.
Have a plan. Well done. Isaac, you're going to wrap up for us, please?
I don't think that we should ask any questions after that. It's an amazing piece of advice to end on. So, yeah, no, thank you very much for joining us. And learned a lot. And thank you for everybody joining online. And have a look at the AHDB website for some things like the labour life cycle, but all sorts of other resources as well. Thank you very much, Max.
And to just to wrap up, Hannah, you're fantastic. If okay, we want to watch you as you make this positive move to New Zealand, because we're going to learn so much from you out there, and especially when you come back. Just to wrap up, we've got to know, Hannah, what's your favourite colour of cow?
Oh, I do love, and maybe this is why the Kiwi bug is hitting me, I definitely think the tiger cow, the kind of like zebra jersey cross looking one. There's just something, quite appealing about them.
Isaac, your favourite colour?
I do quite like a jersey. I quite like jersey cows. They're quite headstrong. Maybe that's why. And I was just I don't know if people can see that, the mug Hannah gave me, sent to
stand up for your sisters. Love it.
The Association of Strong Women.
Excellent.
So a call out to all strong women out there.
What a way to end it. And just to say, these two are going out for a fantastic meal a little bit later, and you might even get a taxi to have a proper night out.
Yeah,
maybe
put the world to rights. Maybe.
Yeah, fantastic. Hannah, well done. Thank you. Thank you, Isaac.